Hello, and welcome to the very first episode of the CardWard Podcast. We are your hosts. My name is John, or the SaltiestGaijin, as you can find me everywhere that you need to. I'm joined by my very good friend Jaffer, otherwise known as Jarman, to the lesser crowd. So, of course, we're very excited. We've been talking about doing this podcast for a long time, like 2 months or so.
Yeah. I found I would invite John onto my stream. I'm a full-time streamer and I would invite John on just to do some testing for RCQs, and we found that my viewership likes it when we're both talking together about magic stuff. So that's where the idea of this podcast came from. We like talking about magic together. People seem to enjoy listening to us talk about magic. People like asking judge questions to John as well.
People like my judging style, which is like detached and annoyed would probably be the best way to describe it. Um, because I get asked a lot of I judge the only events I judge these days are pre-releases. I never really got into judging comp REL stuff, so I get asked like the dumbest questions you can imagine sometimes, and then usually more than once by the same person. And if those people are listening, know that it's not you. It's the other one you're thinking of. But yeah, your chat seemed to get a good kick out of me explaining how banding works and why they'll never do it again, because it's both confusing and overpowered. And yeah, so we that stemmed me explaining banding became a whole podcast. Where
Yes.
we're not going to talk about banding almost ever. Uh,
Well, for those that don't know who we are, if it's your first time in, welcome in. If you're a cat yelling in the background, I'm sorry. Tiberius is demanding attention from me while I'm talking.
let's get a cat cam for the podcast.
All people would love that.
Our third host.
Tiberius giving his hot takes on any cards that involve animals.
Listen here, if it has no treats involved, they're all zeros.
But for anybody that doesn't know who we are, my name is Jaffer. I'm a full-time content creator. I stream on Twitch 5 to 6 days a week. I'm more known in like the night crowd, like 6 o'clock in the afternoon and on from there. So if you're ever looking for anything to watch at that time of night and want to chat with or watch a live streamer, you'd come by to twitch.tv/Jaffer. Check that out. But yeah, that's a lot of fun.
Your streams are a lot of fun, and you play the great music, which is either heavy metal or anime music, and either way, it's a very enjoyable experience. Stick Kaldheim sweatshirt, by the way. Of course, I'm SaltiestGaijin. I stream under that name. I compete under that name as well. That's the name on my jersey. When I'm out playing at various tournaments, but my name is John. I have a full-time job, not a full-time stream. So I don't make nearly as much content as my contemporary here, but I do stream once a week typically with another friend of mine where we do a lot of brewing, a lot of deck building exercises, which is a skill that a lot of we'll say grinders don't really hone the greatest. Even though they should, because it makes you better at things like limited, which is important if you want to be a pro Magic player. So of course we do a lot of that. But I travel around the country. I play the RCs. I play the RCQs. I play more locally here in the Midwest, the NRG series. And Lord forbid if they allow me, I'll start playing at SCG cons if they're not in Ohio. I don't like Ohio. No offense, Ohio, if you're listening, but to my understanding, the internet is convinced you're not a real place anyway.
It's just a meme.
It is. Ohio is a meme, and there's some cryptids or something that live there. I don't know. All I know is that on TikTok, some guy gives me weekly updates about how Ohio isn't a real place, but he lives there.
Okay, so we're going to talk about some Thunder Junction standard or cards.
Yeah, we're gonna dive into the Outlaws of Thunder Junction. Probably we'll talk about a little bit of every format because it's had a little bit of impact in pretty much every format. But to kind of start, of course, we're recording this on Sunday the 28th, which means we're recording this during the top 8 of the Pro Tour.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, before we started recording, they just finished the first match, right? You were telling me about that. I didn't get a chance to watch it, but you said it was like 2 hours long.
Yeah, it was a little over 2 hours. It was Yoshihiko Ikawa versus Sean Goddard. It was Domain Ramp versus Teamer Analyst, which is a long. That's just a two walruses slapping each other on the beach. It takes a while for them to talk themselves out. That's the kind of magic we're playing. Just big swingy turns and things like that. And ultimately, it actually went to Yoshihiko, which is impressive because it's not typically favored for him, but he watching that match, he just ripped at every opportunity, which which is unfortunate for Sean Goddard. But Yoshihiko is hell bent on winning that trophy. It's the one thing he hasn't done in Magic besides the World Championship win. So he wants that Pro Tour trophy. And I honestly, looking at the rest of the top eight, he's probably in a good position to get it. So we'll have to see how it plays out. But looking at the Pro Tour in a more overall sense, we saw not too much impact from Thunder Junction, at least in the top eight. The kind of the biggest ads for a couple of decks were things like Rest in Peace. Esper picked up things like Pest Control for its Boros matchup. But then, Boros got some better mana. The
Mhm.
biggest thing we saw was Four Color Legends got a new win condition, as well as just a new good legendary creature in Honest Rutstein, which created this, if you have a Rona, a Relic, and two Honest Rutsteins, you can just keep playing Honest Rutsteins over and over again. And there's a few ways that you can play, like Vile Smasher from the new set, Alasso Core from an older set, and even Tiny Bones joins up. You have this way of looping Honest Rutstein and just killing the opponent because you can deal infinite damage. So very impressive, upgrade to Four Color Legends. And that was probably the biggest change we saw, at least in the top eight decks. Um, I suspect the gap in time between set release and this Pro Tour is why we didn't see more cards from Thunder Junction show up, because there's definitely some cards out there that seem like they could easily fit into decks. But some of the teams weren't as willing to maybe risk it
Mhm.
with maybe the not as tested cards. Like Team Channel Fireball probably played the riskiest decks, and which was like Golgari mid range.
Yeah,
Was there one of their decks?
you were mentioning a little bit ago to me that they how that archetype has the highest, one of the highest win rates this weekend, or their
Third
team.
highest.
Okay.
Third highest. It was and it's not by a huge margin, because four color, so it went Azorius Control with like a 60% win rate. Uh which ugh. Four color Legends 58.2% win rate. Pretty solid performance. Again, that deck got probably the out of all the decks that did well, had probably some of the biggest changes, and they really seemed to pay off. But you don't just top eight the Pro Tour by doing well in Standard. You also have to do well in Draft. But then yeah, Golgari came in at third at 58.1. So just right, basically bottlenecked with Golgari with four color. But we saw lists in Golgari playing, hostile investigator or hostile interrogator. The four mana 4/3 makes your opponent discard, and then you make clues.
Okay.
We saw Pillage the Bog show up in decks, which is like a soft tutor, based on the number of lands you have, and then like Caustic Bronco showing up as well, which is like this almost Dark Confidant. It's like Blood Scrivener, but like actually a playable Magic card. Like
Personally,
so,
for me, I when I tried that card out in on online, in standard, it that card didn't feel playable to me because there's like too many good blockers that you can attack into with Caustic Bronco. Like it's a 2/2,
yeah.
right? 2/2
I
with,
think the biggest thing is you just have to have a ton of removal
yeah.
to clear those. Like if you go Caustic Bronco, kill everything that ever gets in its way, it's a great card. Like,
Somebody,
but
one of my viewers were mentioning to me in my Discord, they're wanting me to play this deck. There's like a white black aggro-ish deck with Caustic Bronco and like that Shadow Mortality card, I think,
oh sure.
from the
Yeah, that
PT.
seems like Magic the Christmas Land if I've ever seen it.
Yeah, well, it
Uh,
plays that new tutor where you tutor to top. So I guess the
yeah.
idea, I don't know what the record was with the deck, but obviously they didn't top eight in the PT. But uh, the idea was you use the new tutor to tutor for Shadow Mortality to top your deck,
Yep.
and that's like a 7 mana spell, I think. I might be wrong with that. It might be higher than that. But you crew the Bronco attack
Shadow of
in.
Mortality is a 15 mana spell.
Oh, okay. So 15. So
Yeah.
crew the Bronco attack in, dome your opponent for 15, and probably win right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, I can understand the appeal, but it's also like that. The biggest flaw with that game plan is it requires you to put the card Shadow of Mortality into your library,
Yeah.
and that was the L like from the get go. Like that's definitely the issue. Like it's not
Hmm.
usually worth because like we've seen decks do similar stuff in the past, but like those decks usually had Brainstorm and like fetch lands. So it's like you could put the big dumb card on top of your deck,
Hmm.
take advantage of it, and then shuffle your deck.
Yeah, I think the only spot we ever seen that card played, that card specifically Shadow Mortality, was like Modern. Like when it first
It
came
was
out, Death
like
Shadow was
explosive
trying it.
singularity did like a thing
Okay, I
where it
remember
didn't,
Death
but like
Shadow was
Emrakul
trying
was a
it
better
too.
card to do. They tried. It was bad. It took like a minute to figure out that that card wasn't very good in modern
Yeah.
because it has none of the benefits of what Death Shadow does and all of the drawbacks that Death Shadow doesn't. So it's like and there's the 2 mana one too, like the Skyclave
Mhm.
thing. Like that's all. That's just a better card too.
Yeah, that just sees
But
more play too. That sees some play in Modern here and there, but
not. I mean, Death Shadow doesn't see play in modern, so like
oh, okay.
modern's kind of left those cards
So
behind.
from last time I played and looked at Modern, that's what I remember.
Yeah,
For context on what formats I play, just uh, basically if it's on Arena, if it's a paper format on Arena, I play it. So standard and Pioneer and paper, fake Pioneer on Arena, Explore.
yeah, and the occasional MTGO, right? Like you play
Yeah,
Pioneer on Moto.
yeah, I just got into the MTGO content creator program, so I might explore into Modern here and there. I'm not
Yeah,
super willing to, but I'm occasionally maybe.
yeah. I play a lot of modern. I play any of the formats that the RCQs are. So anything that you could play at the Pro Tour is something that I play quite a bit of. So, but yeah, so we'll dive into. So with standard, we kind of got these first
Yeah.
impressions. Personally, with the stuff I've been trying, like Gissa, Tiny Bones joins up. Just trying all the different like really bristly bills. Another one. I've been trying a ton of like cards from this set,
Mhm.
and there's definitely a lot to play in the set. I'm just we'll have to give it probably another week or two before we really kind of see what from the new set actually sort of settles into
Mhm.
standard decks. I don't imagine we'll see a drastically different metagame from the Pro Tour. I don't think there's anything that's like, bubbling under the surface, waiting for, people to find it
Yeah.
quite yet. But there's definitely a lot of cards that you can play
Hmm.
in standard out of the new set and that are very good. It's just a matter of, figuring out that pecking order. Um, we've also seen some impact in Pioneer,
Yeah.
specifically Slick Shot is and that's also showing up in modern too for all the same reasons. It's just a Kiln Fiend with flying and haste. Turns out
Hmm.
if you give a card flying and haste and make it a wizard for some reason, uh
I feel like
really good way to make a card good.
like it's definitely the plot part as well that's helped
Oh,
that
for
card
sure.
immensely. If it didn't have plot, I think it would see play a little bit, but not as much as right now. But
I
excuse
don't
me.
think it'd be as good without it because
Yes.
like I think a lot of people thought the plot on that card was like pointless. But it's also like, well, no, if you're playing a matchup, so like, if you're playing a matchup against removal, right? Like Killing Fiend, you just play and it dies. It gets pushed or bolted or whatever.
Yeah.
You need to untap with it. You get to untap with Slick Shot Duelist, and cast it for zero by being able to cast it for zero after plotting it. So like, there's a lot of games where you can plot it on turn two, and then just sort of keep sculpting your hand, maybe
Hmm.
pecking in with the other creatures until eventually your opponent's in this position where they can just never tap out. And if you just keep plotting multiple Slick Shots, then eventually you'll just cast the ball, play like 2 or 3 spells, and they're dead. There's nothing that they could do about it. So it's a very interesting card. Definitely has its problems in formats like Pioneer. There's like because unlike in Standard, there's like really efficient answers for it
Hmm.
in Pioneer and especially in Modern. So I find it's a very powerful card, and I really really like what it's doing for decks. Like prowess in both formats is showing up again. Mono red is showing up in specifically Pioneer, and I would love to see maybe some more. I have a feeling there's like versions of Murktide that get away with it. There's versions of, there's like an Is It Wizards deck or
Mhm.
something that plays, like the mono red deck's already like starting to play more wizards and play Wizards Lightning again. And I
Yeah,
really like what this set's doing for older formats, and I think
mhm.
we're gonna keep seeing more cards from these sets sort of pop up there.
Yeah, speaking of Slick Shot show off specifically, I was at an RTQ yesterday. It went terrible. I played mono black mid range and I played against 3 red decks. 2 of them played Slick Shot. It felt
You
terrible.
didn't play
But
Moment of Craving. I told you.
after a couple rounds each time, people were talking about the mono red deck and how yeah, it's wizards, but they are talking about how um this is just kind of an off topic sort of thing. Like
Mhm.
Soulscar Mage, I guess like some people are feeling like that it's not super helpful in the deck of like it's just with it not having haste, they're not liking it. But it kind of makes sense as well though to play it with, like shrink opponent's creatures.
I mean, that's not the reason you play it. It is just a
It's a
one man.
wizard.
It's just a wizard that is kind of like Monastery Swiftspear, and
Yeah.
then you can build in ways to take advantage of the shrinkage with like end the festivities, for example, which is good
Mhm.
against like Boros, but then also would shrink like their convoke creature or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, and then maybe like back in the day it was Goblin Chain Whirler sort of did that too. So like there's definitely ways that you can take advantage of Soul Scar Mage. And I have
Mhm.
a feeling the biggest thing, and I have a good friend who plays for a different team that he's like, the burn guy. And he's really into mono red and pioneer. And whenever we talk about it, he's like, he'll list off like 6 cards that are good, and then you point out that that's only 24 cards in a deck. And it's like Soul Scar Mage just is like, even if it's not good, it's like what's better than it for your deck in Pioneer.
Good point.
Like it's like that's definitely where it comes from, I think, is that like, yeah, like I get why you wouldn't like this card, but unless you're going into another color, it's like then you're gonna run out of good cards in a monocolor deck, especially in Pioneer. Like the card pool's impressive, but it's not that impressive.
Yeah.
Or you could just because otherwise we'd have a lot more monocolored decks in the format that are,
Mhm.
actual contenders.
Uh,
But and then go ahead.
I was gonna say on the topic of new cards impacting
Mhm.
formats like Pioneer, Pillage the Bog, as you mentioned earlier,
Yes.
for standard, it's helped out in Pioneer for Niv-Mizzet as well. It's
Yep. There's a new version of Vampires that's playing it. I
oh
think
yeah,
Doomwake popularized it a little bit,
yeah, it's
where it's
kind
like,
of based off of the fight rigging build, I believe, a little bit.
yeah, it's like a Elvish Mystic, mid-range deck. And the
Mhm.
idea is that you can sometimes go turn to Sorin Vein Ripper, which is a very powerful play. It's a turn earlier than the Rakdos list. But then also like the deck gets to play Pillage the Bog. So if you just have those games that sort of grind out, you can, if you have a Sorin in play, you can like Pillage where like X is 10 because you have 5 lands, and you're gonna find something in the top 10 cards of your library, right?
Mhm.
Um, I do think that deck's maybe more of a fad, but it is a really good pickup for Niv Mizzet.
Yeah,
Uh, like
I
I've seen the lists playing that, and it seems really good.
I was convinced that Pillage the Bog was gonna be just a combo card. Like it just to me, looking at it, it just looked like that's too much to dedicate to that one card to go to look for another card.
Mhm.
But the more and more I'm looking at it, and looking at other decks that are playing it, it does look decent. Like maybe as like, say if like you're Golgari mid range with like a big finisher, maybe as like a one of copy, I guess, for like mid to late game to go dig for that. Um,
Mhm.
but I also haven't played with the card yet. I just these are my thoughts just after watching people play with the card.
Yeah. No, and I agree. Well, it's like you think of a card that is like this really big, like it's a cantrip that almost soft searches for a card. Yeah, you're right to assume that's a combo card. But then when you really start to look at it, it's like, well, actually, combo decks don't tend to have a ton of lands in play.
Yeah.
At least the ones that would be like that you kind of traditionally think of. But mid-range decks on the other hand, where you play 24, 25, even to 26 or 7 lands, it's like, yeah, there's gonna be games where this is just literally search your library for a card in
Grab
the late
demonic tutor.
game. Yeah, there's just games where it does get to that point. and that makes like where you can play less copies of maybe more like cards that are very impactful but only in specific situations.
Mhm.
I'm not sold on that as a concept, because like that's a very old school constructed concept. Like there was a Golgari, what was it? It was John Finkel played it at a pro tour. It was like Seasons Past was the name of the deck, and it did that with Dark Petition, which you could kind of do because if you had Spell Mastery, it was just Demonic Tutor. Because it was 5 mana but gave you the 3 mana rebate. So you could search up all these powerful 3 mana plays, and Pillage the Bog is 2 mana, and so maybe you could do that again, but it's also like the game has kind of moved on from like being able to spin your wheels that much all the time.
More
So I
aggressive
worry
now.
that that's a little bit of an issue. I could see a deck more like Domain taking advantage of it, for example. Because like they're naturally ramping and they're naturally going to have less
Mhm.
spots in their deck for cards. So it's like, oh, I can play maybe one less copy of this, one less copy of that, and just play Pillage the Bog and help kind of. I can find those, or I can find
Yeah.
other things. So definitely an interesting card, though. I think it will settle into some really good spots. I'm curious to see if it ends up being any good in other formats.
Mhm.
Because like it's got a unique effect, and other formats do more unique things with lands. Like I could see Legacy liking a card like that.
Amulet Titan in Modern?
Maybe.
I guess you already
It'd be
have
competing with Summoner's Pact is the thing.
and Teleria Academy, right?
Teleria,
Or not
Teleria,
Academy.
yeah, Teleria West, which
Okay.
searches for Summoner's Pact.
Yeah.
So you can have a tutor for your tutor in Amulet Titan. Um, but yeah, the I could see lands, for example, or depths, being the other name for most of the lands decks in
Okay.
Legacy wanting it, because like they're playing like straight up exploration, like so they're playing multiple lands a turn, and they're a deck that gets up to like having 8, 9, 10 lands in play. So having this thing that's like, oh, just like look at the top like 18 cards of my library for something could actually be quite good for them. It is competing with crop rotation there, but it's better with sideboard cards that aren't lands for that deck. So that's like the one other spot I'm kind of excited to see what it does, is if it's any good in Legacy, but that's not really a format we'll be talking a lot about on this podcast.
Yeah, like we'll probably just talk about it when you go to any NRG that involves it.
Yeah, basically, we'll maybe do a little brief overview,
Mhm.
but yeah, Outlaws, it's been a great format. Just it's sort of like very surface level stuff
Mhm.
that we've talked about so far. As far as some of the stuff that's really impacted it. Now I think we've both gotten a good chance to play with it in constructed. Have you played any limited?
The most limited I did was 2 pre-releases. I did the Friday
Okay.
one that you and I were both at, and then I did 2 at a Giant on that following
Mhm.
Sunday. One on Friday. To be honest, my experience with limited usually is I think these cards look okay. I'm going to play them because I'm not a limited player. I'm a constructed player. On Friday pre-release, I didn't know what I was doing, and we got 20 minutes into deck building. I was looking at my cards and like, I think I have an okay blue white pool. I will build this, and I played one rare out of all my blue white stuff. I took fourth, but
Hey,
I lost to Brian to get that oversized Resplendent Angel. I wish I got it, but oh well. Uh,
I
Oversized
thought that
cards
was
are cool.
interesting. They did oversized cards for prizes, but
Mhm.
yeah, I've gotten a chance. I played multiple pre-releases. I judged a pre-release too. I think this set did a really good job with having kind of two bonus sheets in it. I know one of them was like it was going to be an aftermath set, and then they got that egg in their face over the last one.
Mhm.
So now Assassin's Creed's not going to be called an aftermath set. It's going to be a Beyond booster, which is
Yep.
totally different. It has 7 cards instead of 5. But will probably cost 3 times as much for some reason.
Yep.
I can't wait to do the episode about that. Um, but the like we got that bonus sheet. We got the prosperity post, the wanted cards. And so having like like for sealed, it's really impactful because that means you can have packs with like 3 rares in it.
Mhm.
And like there's some really like powerful stuff. Like I was watching people pitch cast like Force of Vigor in sealed. which was like really interesting because it made like, oh wow, like this if this was like a regular game of Seal, this game would be over. But then like,
Hmm.
oh no, he just had Force of Vigor in his hand and he just got to destroy 2 cards at instant speed.
Yep.
Uh, opponent did not see that one coming. I'll tell you that. And then like cards like Mana Drain exist in the environment. Archive Trap exists. I was in my midnight pre-release. I ended up playing too because we had an odd number,
Huh.
and I had Archive Trap in my deck, and I had an opponent play Insatiable Avarice, and then after it resolved, I milled them for 13 cards for 0 mana, and that's
Well,
how I
that's
won.
really big and limited too.
Yeah, where it's like, oh, like you just have 13 less cards in your deck, and then the game ground out, and I won by decking them. Like I was like, that's exactly what this card's meant. But even for 5 mana and limited, like sometimes just milling somebody for 13 can be lights out play.
Hmm.
But the draft environment is also very interesting. Green's finally good in draft. It hasn't been good in draft in a long time, which is a exciting change for once. But yeah, the limited environment was really good. Watching the Pro Tours limited portion was excellent. There was a lot of really good matches, a lot of really interesting decks. Because like even though green was like clearly like kind of the best color going into
Hmm.
limited, you still saw like Javier Dominguez 3-0 this day 2 draft with Rakdos beatdown because he had Terror of the Peaks in his deck.
Hmm.
And it's like that, there's like it's not impossible to win with the other colors. It's just, green's just the good one, got the best uncommons and whatnot.
Yeah, the only complaint I have about limited with the set, uh, it's kind of an arena complaint. It's
Sure.
trying to open booster packs normally on arena instead of through draft. You have a much lower rate in opening the big scorecards.
I thought that was a bug.
Yeah, I thought it was a bug too. I don't know if it's a bug or if it's
They
like,
haven't said anything though.
yeah, they haven't said anything. No, all I've been seeing Fire Shoes retweet stuff about it and talking about it on Twitter, and like that's all the stuff I've been hearing about, and like some people complaining in my Discord about that. Like feels bad for those that like complete their collection by just buying packs and opening them. Um, like
Mhm.
I'm sort of one of those people, but at the same time, like I don't care about those cards too much. But it just may
The
hopefully.
big score cards are standard legal.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
That's
So
why it was
it's the
annoying
other
because the
one. It's the other. Okay.
yeah, um,
So
yeah, the
yeah,
other one, the prosperity postcards,
yeah.
or the wanted cards or whatever. I forget what they're called.
I guess so far for me personally, I haven't played with many big scorecards. Some of them seem ridiculous though. But
Yeah. Like
hope.
hostile investigator was kind of the one that saw them, and pest control and
Mhm.
rest in peace were the three that kind of saw the most play. Thankfully, one of them was a reprint of a card we've had before.
Um. Yeah.
Mhm.
Hopefully in the future, if they do anything like this again, hope they don't. They get that fixed or done right on Arena.
I think this will be the one time that we have something like this, where we have 2 bonus sheets in one set,
Hmm.
because it was purely a product of the March of the Machine Aftermath failed so badly that they didn't want to like try it again. Was the whole thing. So I think we're in a position now where we're probably not going to see something like this again. I do hope they continue to do bonus sheets
Hmm.
because I think bonus sheets are like one of the best things they've added to standard sets in a long time because it adds value to the booster packs in a way that you can't like because like I get why you can't like reprint fetch lands into standard or whatever, and why you can't reprint certain cards into standard. You have to put them in master sets or whatever.
Yeah.
But we don't do master sets anymore. We do horizon sets and legend sets or whatever we call them. And you can't reprint absolutely everything in there. You gotta, print new cards too. And so like using the bonus sheet as a way to get cards out there that kind of need a reprint. Because like look at some of the cards that got a reprint, like what's its name? Is it like there was a trap? I forget the name of it. Not archive trap. Um, a different one that had never been reprinted before. It's the if your opponents cast 3 or more spells, you can cast it
Okay.
for 0, and it exiles all spells on the stack.
I
Uh,
don't remember that one to be honest.
yeah, it's a very big card in like Legacy and like formats where like Storm exists as a like an actual tier 1 deck. But it had never been reprinted since it was
Okay.
printed in Zendikar. So like that as an example, like that card needed a reprint, and there was no good place to do it, put
Mhm.
it in a bonus sheet. Easy. And then like Force of Vigor, another one. Hard to put that into a set. Uh, that isn't like specifically Modern Horizons, but every Horizon set will have its own free spell cycle, so they don't want to put two in that get a little awkward.
Mhm.
Bonus sheet. So like these bonus sheets have been, I think, a huge thing. Is this set having two made it a little awkward, especially for arena. So I get
Okay.
like the when you open packs, there's less cards in them, and then when you open them for draft, so like there's got to be a limit. I mean, it's all fakey fake money, and like they make ludicrous amounts of money regardless of the buy rates or pull rates of these cards.
Mhm.
So I'm a little confused why they would program it the way they did, but you know, Hasbro is not exactly known for subtle means of making money. They're very blunt about their means of monetization, but
So before,
that's a whole other topic.
yeah, uh, I actually want to make a comment on that topic though, real quick.
Sure.
So like I know where our goal is with this podcast is to talk about like Magic and the formats we play.
Hmm.
But we both play Arena. There was actually
Yes.
recently a um interview that came out with CEO about Arena. Um,
Yeah, because it dipped in sales
yeah.
this last quarter, mostly because we didn't have anything like Lord of the Rings or whatever. But
From what I understand, their goal is to bring Commander to Arena, which I think will help with the health of the client of like the player base. Really,
Mhm.
it'll bring more players on because there are people out there that refuse to play MTGO. They refuse to play Commander on MTGO because they don't like how the client looks. Um,
Yep.
it is an older client, but it's a nice client still. Um,
Functionally, it's good. It's just
mhm,
boring to watch,
yes.
and
Uh,
especially in a game of Commander where you will sit there idle doing nothing
mhm,
for like probably 8 minutes as the three other people take. That's I think what the problem with digital Commander will end up being is
mhm,
that people be like, we want Commander on Arena. And the monkey's paw curls, and now they sit for 10 minutes as they get past priority constantly
mhm,
because you can't shorthand that stuff on digital, just like on 1v1.
yeah.
Everybody has to get priority on a spell in turn order, which is even worse. So I think I think that'll be like a monkey's paw moment. But I
Mhm,
agree, overall, at least in theory, like adding Commander to Arena, which they'll have to do a lot of work to do that because the existing client as it is couldn't handle that. But doing that I think would be like a net positive. I also kind of hope it means that they might lose some of the emphasis on monetizing getting cards and more monetize like cosmetics, larger player base, give them the opportunity to do that in a good way.
yeah.
So it make people like us who are really there just to play constructed. It would
Mhm.
kind of lower our costs on because I don't know how much you spend a year. I think I spend like maybe $600-700 a year on Arena
On
just to have cards.
average, on average per set, I spend anywhere from $50 to $100 now. I
Yeah,
used to spend up to $200 per set because I
yeah,
would
it's about what I'm
refuse.
at.
I would refuse to draft, and now I
Yeah,
use draft tokens to rare draft. Speaking of rare drafting, I got like 19 rares in my first rare draft this set. It was ridiculous. But like I was like looking at my pool and like I can't. I literally cannot play this.
don't tell any of the limited podcasts that you did that. Uh, because they'd cringe at the idea of you rare drafting just for the sake of it. But yeah, like it's definitely like yeah, like because I'm about the same, about $100, and then I occasionally will buy some gems to play limited or whatever when I'm
Mhm,
in the because that's what I do for like when I'm playing offline a lot too. Is I'll play limited as like a way to get away from the other formats. But yeah, like I kind of dislike the way they monetize Arena, like
mhm.
where it's like buying packs and having cards is like the barrier to entry. It's like I get that in paper, like there's no way to not make that the thing in paper unless you just make the game like a living card game, or just
Mhm,
buying a box of cards is 4 copies of every card in the set or whatever. And it's like so I definitely understand why they did it like that because technically that's also how MTGO works, but
mhm.
there's also the one key difference between MTGO, tabletop, and arena is that like the arena cards are like in your collection forever and you can never get rid of them.
I
Uh
guess like a way to compare it, like an example for those that are not used to playing digitally. You could think of like MTGO as NFTs, sort of in a way, uh,
Almost, yeah.
and then Arena is like NFTs you cannot resell.
What do you mean MTGO? It's like 9 times out of 10, like the bulk of people who play MTGO do not own any
Yes,
cards.
yes,
They
uh,
rent cards
yes.
from services, or they're like you and they have a creator account where they're doing stuff like that. So it's like even in that situation, it's like the people on MTGO's way of like people playing it is like the barrier to entry is like not being able to afford $1,000 deck, is being able to
Hmm.
pay a $60 monthly fee
Yeah.
plus entry.
I do want to
Like
clarify. I myself, I don't know about John. I don't know anything about NFTs. Just that they're basically digital pictures you could buy, for some
they're
reason.
non fungible tokens.
Not
They're
non fungus tokens.
yeah, I mean, there's another word you can use for NFTs, and that's scam.
Yeah.
Um, they're kind of a grift. At least
Hmm.
they are now. They weren't. And the idea itself isn't a grift, but what it became is a grift, like most cryptocurrencies. It's a confidence game, so like bad actors will do well in a confidence game because that's all they have. But that's a whole economics discussion and finance discussion we
Yeah.
could have separately from this. But the point is that on Arena though is once you own the card, the card right, you don't even own the card. You have a license for the card.
Yeah.
And that license can be revoked at any time too. That's why, like,
Hmm.
technically they don't have to give us anything when they ban cards. They could just take it out of our collection, and that's that. And if it's legal in a format or not is not really any of Wizards of the Coast's concern.
Well, that's making me think
Um,
of it's still it's sort of on topic, but not. So we can think of like recently, Sony recently took not games, um, videos off of a streaming service on the PlayStation Store or something that
mhm.
people have bought, and people actually, like, when you bought it, you bought the license to be able to own it in your collection, but you didn't actually digitally own it. You owned it in your account. So
Yeah,
now,
you had a license to view it
mhm,
whenever you wanted, not a copy to own forever.
yeah, and like I guess a lot of people didn't understand that. I will be honest, I wouldn't have understood that either until it would happen to
No,
me.
because that is not how it was presented
Yeah.
ever.
Okay.
And
Okay.
it's still not how it gets presented. So like the whole thing with licenses, right, is that it's technically in the legal sense always been presented that way. You know, it's part
Hmm.
of like the EULAs you accept when you sign up for a platform is that it's like in there like the terms and conditions of any purchases you make are that you're purchasing a license to the asset, not the asset. And like that's totally fine in theory, but it's gotten to the point where it's like that's why like buying something digitally is never going to be the same as buying physical media. That's why you'll hear a lot of people who are really into things like movies, for example, will tell you that going physical is definitely the better way to go because
Hmm.
nobody can ever take your Blu-ray away from you. You know, like that's not a thing that they can do, and it makes
Hmm.
preservation of certain media like this came up like Crunchyroll, which is owned by Sony, acquired Funimation, which was now so Sony owns both those things. And there's like a lot of Funimation shows that they just dropped, like in like not just like the random bad shows that exist because there's plenty of those. They dropped like classics that just have no streaming home, and the only way to watch them now is illegally unless you owned physical media.
Hmm.
So like it's the same thing. It's just people are starting to sort of like realize that as it became the norm, and now companies are going back on those licenses to be like, oh yeah, like we can just get rid of this and we don't have to do anything for you. And so I kind of worry that that'll happen with Arena someday, where they'll just be like, oh yeah, we're launching Arena 2, and no, none of your
Hmm.
licenses transfer. That would kill that or platform immediately on launch, but you know.
Or
That would be a thing that could see them announcing and then rolling back within a day.
mhm. Or the other
Uh,
worry is like, I mean, like this could happen. Like it's happened in other games before. Like all of a sudden, like Wizard decides Arena's not profitable. Oh hey, we're quitting Arena. It's no longer a thing. You put all this money into it.
yeah, yeah.
Thanks for
That,
your money.
and that is a risk of playing a digital game. To be fair,
Yes.
like you do have to, like that should be something that's not a surprise to anybody who's really into Arena, because that can happen. But
Hmm.
at the same time, it's like it is really shitty when it happens.
Hmm.
I kind of doubt Arena will ever go away. At least in that way. I
if
do
it
think
would,
they'll change the focus of
yeah,
arena at some point, and like I honestly I could see it eventually being the thing that like actual replacing MTGO. They kept
that's
talking about how they'll never put modern or legacy on there, but they're programming some really wacky cards. And imagine if they took any emphasis off of alchemy, that format that nobody plays or cares about, and put it into like they could probably I've already had Pioneer on the platform like probably a year ago, and B, we could be like probably halfway to putting modern on the platform if they really wanted to,
mhm.
because like they kept saying that they couldn't do that, but then like we're getting all the weird mechanics and all the things that exist in modern
The
on the
problem
platform.
the problem with that is their team is very small and they're underpaid. Like,
They're underpaid, understaffed, and most of them are probably interns.
and probably
That's why whenever
burnt the
somebody
hell out.
complains about Arena, I'm like, hey, whatever undergrad intern that wrote this code, they probably did their best. Like
Uh,
they're surviving on coffee and stale donuts. So
I would love it if I doubt it would happen with Arena, but I would love it if Daybreak Games got hold of Arena. Like
they've
Daybreak
done a
Games,
really good job with MTGO. Yeah,
yeah,
like
they've been
they,
amazing with MTGO. Like I
yeah,
don't play MTGO that often, but just seeing how they're interacting with the community now, like they just started that MTGO content creator program, and I joined
the
their
thing that
Discord recently. They're very interactive with everybody in there,
it is
and
mind blowing that they didn't have a content creator program. That's the only reason MTGO has survived as long as it has is because of content creators.
yeah, and
Stoking interest in it. Same with Arena, to be fair. Arena probably would have died without content creators.
mhm. Like, oh, but overall in the whole grand scheme of things, like MTGO, MTGA, they're good platforms. Arena could be much better, but they're good, and I'm glad they're here. But we can play Magic at home,
Mhm.
and I can make content while playing Magic digitally and enjoy playing Magic. We kind of went very off topic from what we were originally going to talk about.
That's how podcasts work.
What
As we just
we went from like talking about the new Thunder Junction cards into like talking about losing cards into like somewhat NFTs into talking about both clients.
yeah, well, it's important to discuss those things, but yeah, but we can get back onto the main topic, which is of course Thunder Junction. Um, I think we have a lot to see with standard. We have the regional championships will be starting up soon.
Yep,
The U.S. regional championship is in about a month from now.
it's like the end of
April,
next
yeah,
month.
right at the end of May.
Hmm.
Like going into the start of June. So 30, May 1st, no, June 1st and June 2nd. But you know, because that's it's a Saturday and Sunday. But like,
Which
so I'll be flying down to Dallas on the 30th
we'll
to
both
play.
be falling down at
That's
the
right.
same
Yeah,
time.
that's right. And we'll be flying
Mhm.
together. Actually, that's
Yeah.
also yeah. We got the same flight out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
If you are going to the regional championship and if you see either of us there and you want to say hi, preferably we're not playing Magic, not in a like a sanctioned match, come up to us and say hi. I might have
Yes.
tokens I can give out for my content. We won't have anything done made for this yet. No tokens or anything made for this. But I'm happy to talk to people and say hi. John, I don't know. I don't know how happy you are to talk to people.
Well, it depends. Are they asking me judge questions? Because people, and what's weird is people really like my judging style, which is
Mhm.
detached and annoyed. Would probably be the best way to describe it. Where it's like I'll gladly give you the best answer possible, but not because like it's mostly because I just want you to stop asking me questions. Uh, but no, I would gladly if anybody who listens to the podcast, which I think episode 2 would be up like the week before Dallas, right?
I think that's our goal.
Yeah,
Uh,
kind of the timing of all this.
we're gonna go over that towards the end of this episode also, so
Yeah,
everybody has an expectation.
we'll go into those details a little later. But yeah, so if any listeners of the podcast come up and say hi, I definitely won't be mean to you. Unless, again, I'm in the middle of playing a match during the regional championship, then I might be a little mean to you. But
Yeah, don't
so
do
I think in Dallas,
that.
actually, the what's really funny is that if it's at this, I think it's at the Omni again. Yeah, it is at the Omni again. So like, we'll be in the Omni, the hotel, and
uh,
DreamHack will be in the convention center.
I was told that it's all in the same area again. I was just told that like a
Uh,
week ago.
Interesting. Dallas was not. laid out in a way that the RC was in like a
Mhm.
ballroom uh in the hotel, which makes sense. It keeps it separate, but there's not
Mhm.
as much noise.
Yeah.
Whereas we're playing competitive Magic, like we don't need necessarily to be in the convention
Mhm.
hall. And the layout of the convention, the Dallas Convention Center, I'm not really sure there would be a good way for us to get in there where we would be not like disturbed by the because that was like a big complaint, especially in Atlanta. The way they laid out the venue was that like
How loud it was.
the tail end of the tournament was like in the convention hall, and like it's really loud in there
Mhm.
because of all the stuff going on. I am excited. This will be the last DreamHack RC,
I'm a little
but
sad about that, but I'm happy
I'm
about it at the
not.
same
But
time. Like, well, as a content creator, DreamHack has always been tons of fun. You can go do magic
yes.
stuff. Go look if you're getting burnt out or a little bored of magic stuff. Go look at all the other stuff. There's a bunch of video game stuff going on there, or
Oh yeah.
cosplayers, or just a whole.
I'll
There's a
school
whole
some
place you can
fools
go buy stuff.
in arcade Tekken. Like I love playing. That's one of my favorite fight. It's my favorite fighting game of all time. And I think they have Tekken 8 is the one in on arcade right now, and I love it.
I think that just
But
came out. But uh
yeah,
anyways, yeah, like I'm a little sad that we're losing regional championship dream hacks, but I'm happy that SCG is taking over it.
Star City Games will be our new organizer. It sounds like they had some trouble with these first round of RCQs. They ran out of kits.
Really?
Yeah, they ran out, and so if you didn't schedule all of your events up until a certain day, if you can only schedule one now until they fix the printing issue. Which I have a feeling was a combination of like Wizards and them
Hmm.
like dropped the ball, or it was like maybe like they like increased where like every store can run three now, including the non-premium stores, and it's just like the only thing the premium stores gets are better promos or whatever. But yeah, to my understanding, they ran out, caused some issues. There's definitely some weirdness with the destination events. So like I'm already qualified for DC. I won a RCQ is what they're called at NRG. So it's a destination event, a little
Hmm.
different than a regular RCQ. So like mine was 5 rounds single elimination modern. So yeah, which is abysmal. But winning cues me. But like the kit that they got was $150, and the only thing they get was the Springleaf drum promo. Like literally, that's all that came in their kit for
Oh,
150 bucks was
wow.
the privilege of running the event and a promo for the winner.
Okay.
And they Norm, the guy he runs Energy, owns Energy, was like, I think that way might have been part of the printing thing, was that they just ran out of promos and this was all they could offer. But the thing is, Star City Games has yet to say that to anybody.
Mm,
They've not actually confirmed why those kits were so sparse.
okay.
But they made their money back. To be fair, they had like 25 competitors at $25 a piece.
They were like
Not bad.
over the weekend, right?
They ran four of them over the weekend because they
Okay.
can run more now.
Okay.
It used to be one a day. Now they can run two a day,
That's
and one of
nice.
those. Well, technically they can run three a day, or rather they can give out three invites in one day. So
Okay.
like for us, there was the first one was single elim, one invite. The second one was single elim, two invites, going out. So the finalists got to go, and basically they just had to play for the promo or whatever. But, um, which was like I think that's a good change.
Hmm.
And they can also do things like give out NRG points in those events now, which is nice.
Nice.
They couldn't do that with DreamHack for some reason, even though it does not impact DreamHack in any way. But all it does is encourage people to play in the event more,
Yeah.
which I thought was weird. But yeah, so like that's a thing. I'm curious to see how that works with Star City's own destination events because they were a destination event for on DreamHack, but now they're the organizer. So I'm kind of curious how many invites they can give out during
Hmm.
SCG SCG cons. I'm
I
hoping we get more of those because I would really like to start going to them, but they're always in Ohio, and I never want to go there.
I hope that this is a topic that gets brought up every time the regional championship comes up. Um, too many people qualified for the
Oh
U.S.
God.
regional championships. I'm still hoping that eventually we get multiple regional championships per season, and
Hmm.
I like the idea you brought up before. where you have to select which one you are going to participate in, and you
Yeah.
can't go to the other one to compete.
Yeah,
Uh,
you get to play in one. You can
yeah,
once you're qualified, you can play in any of them, but you can only play one.
I I would like to see that happen. And then
Yeah.
like realistically, they'd probably be like what maybe 3 to 4 weeks apart from each other because like
No, you could even I think you could even put them all in the same weekend, and that would be fine.
I think it'd be like the issue of
But like,
like the amount
or
of like
like,
staff and stuff that SCG
yeah,
would have.
yeah, that would be the difficulty is if you only
Hmm.
have one organizer, then yeah. But I could see like doing them over the course of 3 to 4 weeks,
Hmm.
so that they're pretty close to one another would be probably for the best because you don't want it to be like so drastically different.
Yeah.
Uh, Other than like maybe to like try and be nice to people who maybe like, oh, there might be people who can't go, but that's such a small minority of people. Thankfully, they did increase the number of invites we're getting starting
Hmm.
with DC, where we're getting 64, and we're getting the most in the US.
Or the PT.
Because it was used to be 32, to put that in perspective.
Yeah,
Now we're getting
they doubled it
64.
for us.
And they admitted that we should probably be getting like 96.
Hmm.
Based on the number of players we get, but they don't want to oversaturate the Pro Tour, which I get. You know, you can only have
Hmm.
so many seats at the Pro Tour,
How many
accounting for all the regions.
how many people do we on average get per pro tour?
Between 300 and 400,
Okay. And depending on the
which is
region, I would assume like non-US regions probably get a smaller turnout, but maybe.
yeah. Well, I mean, if you look at the regional championships for sure, but
Hmm.
yeah, it's like they're definitely like, and like even now it's probably closer to 300, and with the change, it'll probably be closer to four, between 400 and 500,
Hmm.
which I think is fine too, because that's what it used to be, was a little over 400 players at the Pro Tour. Um, and I totally get the idea of like wanting to limit the number of seats that you'll have, but at the same time, it's like if you make the dream so unattainable for people, they'll give up on the dream, and then you'll just lose engagement overall. So you need to make it
Hmm.
like not you can't make it equitable. Like it's just not how competition works, but you need to make it so like because like taking like it was like before it was like oh like the difference between 32nd and 58th was tiebreakers at the last one. Like think about that. Like
Hmm.
that was who you beat was why you got an invite or not. Like and that you have no control over your opponents are.
Yeah, I
It's not
remember
like you get to be a
after
Pokemon trainer and you're just battling only the best. Like you play against whoever's in front of you. Like
you're a Pokemon trainer, the whole RC day 2, like in towards the second half of the day is your Elite Four that you get to fight.
yeah, except the Elite Four is people with X and 2 records, and then they only drag your tiebreakers down as the tournament goes on, because they lose out. But which
No,
is
it's Battle
fine.
Tower. It's Battle Tower.
It's Battle Tower. That's a
Yes.
better. That's a
Yes.
better. It's a better description. I do turn my hat backwards when I wear a hat at tournaments, so that does make me a master. People who've played against me at tournaments know what that is. Where I used to wear a blue hat that had a shark on the back, and I would turn it around so that the shark was facing my opponent. I had to let them know I was coming for him. But and now I have one of those like MTG, with the MTG logo. So now less shark, more
Just get
merch.
just get a new hat with like make your own brand hat. That's just like
Actually, I
whatever.
lost the shark hat. That's why I don't
Oh,
wear it anymore. I don't know what
okay.
happened to it. When I moved a couple years ago, I moved from where I was. That's when I moved to the area we live. I just got lost in the move.
Well, you should make a new one.
I
The
should
front
commission one.
on the front it should have whatever you want, like your personal designer name or something. And then on the back, when you turn your hat backwards, it just has the words, "I'm gonna get you."
I'm coming for you. Like, oh.
And then your opponent asks, what does your hat mean?" And you just like look up from your hand, "I'm
I
gonna get
smell
you."
blood in the water. Like coming for you. Better watch out. But yeah, like but that was like the biggest problem with the regional championship. Ultimately, was less like, and it's still gonna happen, right? Like, because like the difference between like 64th and 78th or whatever is gonna be pretty much the same. But so like, there's like a line you can draw, but the problem is that like when you're playing in a field of 1,300 players, it's like you have to like find a number to cut that off at, where it's like because taking 64th in a room of 1,300 players is impressive. like a lot of people used to not think about this a lot with like Grand Prix back in the day. Like Grand Prix would be like 1,500 people sometimes, and like like making the top eight of the Grand Prix is what was talked about. But like the real the workers, so to speak, the people who are like there every weekend. Like I played in the last year before COVID. I think I played in, like, what was it, 28 Grand Prix, and I top 64 at a good number of those Grand Prix, and that's where you like make your money back. That's like where you cut your teeth on Grand Prix, and that's still considered a good record.
Mhm.
64th out of 1,300. That's still in like the upper single digit percentiles of performance. Like, so, and sometimes it just comes down to variance, and that's why you were 59th and not 7th. It's can be that drastic, but yeah, I'm happy with the changes. I think they can do more.
Mhm.
I think it could either be. I think you could probably do two for us in the U.S. would probably be like a good number,
I
because that would
remember
be like
on
two of
the
like roughly 750 people, which I think is like a
Mhm.
reasonable number. But you'd still have to probably give out 64 invites at that number.
I remember on the live stream when they announced the arena changes for competitive play on arena, they did acknowledge that they understand it's an issue of the size of amount of people that are attending U.S. regionals, and they are keeping it in mind.
Yeah,
They at least acknowledged it, but
we're gonna
uh,
get at least one more season where it's just three regional championships throughout the whole season, and then I
mhm,
imagine because they also increased the number of invites that could be given out.
mhm,
At least in general, like there's also ways for you to now get multiple invites to the regional championship because you can keep playing.
mhm.
But it's definitely like I have a feeling like if this year we have three of them that are all 1,500 people in the next season, it's like, yeah, they're gonna be like, okay, yeah, we have to break these up
I
because
would
like
imagine they're probably going to make that.
we're like twice the size of the next biggest region on
Yeah,
average.
I'd imagine if they make any changes, I would hope that they would make them to start in the first season of 2025.
Yeah, it would be like, yeah, once we're done with the because it would be the first because there's three RCs that would happen next year, and two of them are in the next season, and then only one of them is in the following season.
Okay.
Because like starting with in October we have DC. That's the first one of the next season.
Okay.
Because right now we're coming into the last one of the current season. I do like, by the way, with these changes that we won't be running the same three cities every year, and that they'll never outsource the RC, but that's
Mhm.
a whole other issue. Which means, and we'll be getting them, where it's like one's on the East Coast, one's somewhere in the middle, and one's on the West Coast. So much nicer, because like the fact is that they were all two of them were in the South, and then one of them was out on the West Coast, and it was like they were never going to be anywhere else. So people like
Mhm.
if you lived in New York, it was always a cross country flight for you. If you even lived by us, it was always a cross country flight
Mhm.
for you. And either in the southern direction or the western direction, and that was always rough. So I'm not thrilled. I'm thrilled with that change because that means we're gonna have one on the East Coast already, and we're probably gonna be getting one. I imagine Seattle is like up there for like their choices, or even Vancouver. Could be another one, or somewhere in California, and then I imagine it's Dallas still would be one of them because that's like a really easy place to fly into.
Yeah.
And
I
SCG has a history of going into Dallas.
I don't think it'll ever happen again, but I would love to see some big major Magic event happen in Milwaukee or Madison, Wisconsin again. I don't
That's
think it'll
probably
happen.
gonna get as an NRG. Like NRG has they're doing one in Madison again this year.
Okay.
Do you know what the problem is? Is that in our state, Wisconsin, it's really hard to pay cash for tournaments because of
Yeah.
like our gambling rules and whatnot, and the permits you have to get. That's why the NRG series used to come up here more, but doesn't come up as often. And why, like, you go to a lot of places, like you go to like Illinois, RCQs will pay money because they can,
Mhm.
and it's easy to do. Where you go anywhere here, it's like best you're gonna get is store credit. Here in the U.S., here in Wisconsin at least. So it's like that's definitely like one thing that kind of sucks about our tournament scene is that because it's harder to pay cash at
Mhm.
tournaments, they have to go with other prizes, and they're not always the best.
I wish we just had
But
more of a tournament scene here in Wisconsin. It's mostly like
yeah.
you have to go to Illinois to get one.
At least for any big ones, it's like we got a good amount of RCQs, and like the increased volume of RCQs is going to kind of keep it to where, because like you just went to one in Green Bay, which is a little far north for a lot of people and a little too far
Hmm.
east for
It
like
was pretty
the
small
Eau Claire folks.
too.
There's 11 people,
Yeah,
but like I imagine the one you're going to next weekend, which will be in Oshkosh, Wisconsin,
and it'll be a two
the
slaughter.
is a two slaughter, and it's like that will probably attract some people up from Milwaukee
Hmm.
and some people down from maybe Eau Claire if they don't have one local to them. But it's like with the increased volume, it's like I doubt we'll get anybody coming up from Chicago ever
Hmm.
again because like they're gonna have one every weekend. Probably
Yeah,
some weekends they'll have two
I feel like
that
the
they can
two
play.
slaughters might attract some of them though, because like some might decide like, oh, I
Hmm.
can just spike this two slaughter and just be done for the
Sure.
season, and then maybe go play my local ones just for playing competitive Magic for the heck of it.
Yeah, like that's definitely a factor of like because like that was always a decision point for me when I was looking at RCQs. It's like, oh, is it a two slaughter or a one slaughter?
Hmm.
If it's a two slaughter, it's probably at a better store, like a nicer place to play. And then they might have other things they want to buy too while I'm there. So it's like I'll probably more likely go
Hmm.
there unless the one slaughter is like within like a half a distance away. So like the big thing for them is like it's a 2.5 hour drive
Hmm.
to come up from the like North Chicago to play in Oshkosh. So it's like for them it's almost probably never worth it. But yeah, there might be a handful, especially if they're like worried or they're sell out a lot down there. That might also be a factor too.
Yeah.
But even then, like there's gonna be some in Milwaukee too. Like that's places in between us and there. So I have a
Uh.
feeling that's gonna be a more common thing. Is we'll probably see the relative size
Mhm.
of RCQs go down in a lot of places, except for in like the big metropolitan areas where there's just enough people that like they were having to leave the city to play RCQs and sell out RCQs in more
Mhm.
smaller cities. But now they'll just be able to probably have two of them every weekend, and they can just you know sell them all out, which is a good thing. That's a net positive, I think. This is going to build better, you know, local Magic communities, which we
Yeah.
definitely need.
Speaking of
But
RCQs, I don't know if I mentioned earlier. I hated the deck choice I played. Like in theory, I liked the idea, but
we didn't play
in
Moment of Craving, dude. I told you specifically if you were going to play Mono Black mid range to play Moment of Craving. It's so good against Slick Shot. It just kills it clean and gains 2 life.
for context, I played Mono Black mid range, not Waste Not. I played Mono Black mid range
Yeah, the new
yesterday.
Kervek deck.
Yeah, playing Karavik, Deep Combats, Thoughtseize, and all that. Just the idea of it sounded good. And
Cool
then
deck.
it is definitely a cool deck. Instant Speed Thoughtseize is really
Yeah, like
fun.
it does some interesting things. It just hasn't proven itself yet. You
Yeah,
took a risk on a new deck and it didn't pay off.
true.
Mostly because you didn't
But
take my advice. Uh
for context of what I played against, it felt terrible. I played against Boros Convoke round 1, lost. Round 2,
yeah.
tie. Round 3, mono red to a friend, lost. Round 4, mono red, lost. Round 5, control. Very odd control list that you know who played and lost. Um, I'm going to just play my comfort deck next weekend.
Oh yeah, I
Sacrifice.
heard that that person was playing basically like blue white trade binder and bulk box.
Yeah, it was like
Like there's
blue
like all
white.
sorts of random like what favorite pet cards or whatever.
Yeah, it was like blue white control with like beat up the beanstalk in there, and then they were doing like
I never want
Nars.
to let go of this deck from modern.
There was Leyline binding, Narset
Sure.
with oh,
Days
what's
Undoing.
yeah, Days Undoing. There's 2 copies of Days Undoing. I was like,
Sure.
okay, well,
I'll
today's
give
not my
them
day.
I'll give them creativity points. They're no George Jabor, but you know the I'm not shocked. I did tell you to play Bowman of Craving. That probably would have helped you against your mono red opponents. Because if I was playing any black deck, I would have considered playing that card because of how good
Mhm.
it is against specifically the mono red deck. Because it kills all of their creatures. Because the lackey, the slick shot thing does not increase its toughness.
Mhm.
It only increases its power. So like a -2/-2 kills it regardless. So you just let them do their thing where they burn, sling off all these spells, and then you just tag it and gain 2 life.
I was
And
expecting to
then
see a lot of vampires. There was only 2 vampire decks there, and I didn't play against any of them.
yeah, dude, yeah, the vampires beat people out because their credit cards weren't strong enough.
I mean, for a whole
Like,
playset of Soren and Vainripper, now it's almost $300, which is
it's
ridiculous.
I think it's more than that. Because like Sorens are like 50
I
some
looked
odd
on
dollars.
I looked on Friday and just out of curiosity, and it was like around 280 for just the cheapest you can find. And somebody on Twitter, like I was occasionally on Twitter, I post like, "What deck should I play for F&M?" which might turn into what I play for this RSQ.
Hot
Somebody was like,
damn.
"Well, you should play Sacrifice with Soren and Vainripper.
So
Vainripper
the
commits
only
crimes."
kinds.
Just saying.
Yeah. So this is only relevant right now, but out of all the cards, all this variant, there's only one printing of Soren, and out of all the variants, only the regulars are available.
There should be two printings.
Each. Uh
Secret Lair.
oh sure. Let me pull them up here. Soren
The
and
Secret Lair
Vayne.
used to be cheaper than the original.
Oh, here we go. Okay, the secret layers are a little cheaper, but they're only in foils, so that's
Mhm.
a bad thing. That
Don't
means
play
that
foils, chat.
yeah, don't play foils if you want to play tournament magic. So I'm not even gonna count it because I don't think that you would want to play them. But regular Sorens, the cheapest you can get right now is $48.
Ugh.
And there's only two of them at that price, and they both have shipping. So it's like actually $50 is like the cheapest. So it's like $200 for a playset of Sorens, and
Mhm.
then like Vein Ripper. We pull up Vein Ripper. The cheapest variant of Vein Ripper is $22. So yeah, like almost $300. It's actually more expensive than some modern decks,
Mhm.
which is crazy. But yeah, like the best card in Vampires is your Visa card. Like that's really what it's at. Like if you have vampire, like let me clarify. I own vampires. I love that deck. That deck's hilarious
But
to
you bought
me.
into it before it spiked hard.
I did. I bought my Sorens for $18 a piece because I saw Soren and Vein Ripper on a Pro Tour graphic, and I'm like, there. And once I found out what team was playing it, I'm like, there's absolutely no way in hell that this deck isn't absolutely ridiculous.
Mhm.
And yeah, and I was right, and that spec paid off, and I think I got my Vein Rippers for $8 a piece or whatever. But it's a
I
really good deck.
I
But
sold my Sorens like 2 months before the PT. Not
that's really funny.
Yeah, it's just like
Well, it
I
sat
never
dead for
played
so
these
long.
cards.
Yeah, it sat dead for so long. It
Mhm.
retained its price because it is probably one of the best planeswalkers ever printed. It's just so narrow that it's not. It's just it only works with vampires, and that kind of limits how good it can be. But like what it does is it's one of the best things ever.
Mhm.
Like, but yeah, I'm not surprised. I actually would assume that at the RCQ level, you'll run into that a lot, where there's like that's still almost 20% of the field, which I guess is
Mhm.
technically tracks with metagame data, but it's like, you could probably assume you'll either see very little or a lot of vampires at any given RCQ. And I would probably be more prepared for like low ball aggro decks like
Mhm.
Convoke and Mono Red and then like the people who like want to play slow decks too.
Yeah, so my
Yeah.
comfort deck, Rakdos Sacrifice, what I feel like is probably the better choice for me right now. Funny thing is,
You're gonna
another
play against like vampires 3 times in a row next week.
will probably happen. Funny thing is, my content creator friend of mine, Sam71, he is known for playing Rakdos decks, and he played Sacrifice at
Yep.
RCQ yesterday. He's in Canada, so theirs are a little different. I get he played in one which is a top 4 qualifier, so top 4 qualifies for their RC. But
Must be nice.
he won his he lost to Vampires in the Swiss, but he had a rematch in the finals and beat them. Um,
It's
and
not an unwinnable matchup. It's if they
yeah,
literally just slam a turn 3 Vein Ripper, like
it's almost
game 1
impossible to
it's
beat
lights
if they
out,
do that exactly turn 3.
and games 2 and 3, like you could beat that with
Mhm.
your sideboard, but like it's still not gonna be pretty.
To be
Uh
relevant of like to be able to have a game against them, I am now forced to play Blot Out in the main as a one of.
yeah. And the Blottout's a good card.
Yeah.
It also deals with other like rando threats,
Mhm.
especially out of like blue white control.
Mhm.
So it's like it's not a bad card. Definitely not the card I would have thought saw a ton of play out of the aftermath set, but
Mhm.
I'm happy. Happy something out of that set's good besides Nissa, but
It has a cool alt art too. It has the Kamigawa border.
yeah, it does. Because yeah, it was a card cut from Kamigawa because that's what that whole set was cards cut from other sets shoved into a set. That's why it randomly had a card with the Guilds of Ravnica mechanics on it.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's why that set failed. By the way, it had nothing to do with the structure of the set. It was that it was clearly a bunch of like cards that were cut during the development process, shoved into a set. But we could talk. We could probably do a whole episode when we don't have a set to talk about. We can probably talk about the failure of aftermath sets, and
Mhm.
hopefully we'll also be talking about the failure of Beyond boosters at the same time. Because I'm really hoping the Assassin's Creed set doesn't do well because I hate it like fundamentally.
I hope the Final
But
Fantasy set does well, though.
well, that's gonna be like a whole set, like an
Yeah.
actual set. I'm
Mhm.
fine with them when they're actual sets. It's when they do these mini set stuff that it's like I would have rather you just did it as a bonus sheet on something. Like make it a bonus sheet for like MH3 or whatever. And that would have been fine with me. But like by making it its own set, it's like it's not so here's the thing is like with the mini sets, and this is the same problem that you had with Aftermath, is that these aren't in draft boosters. Why are there rarities on any of these cards?
Yeah.
It literally could not matter to have rarities because the whole point of rarities in Magic is it's actually a limited mechanic
Mhm.
to keep you make more powerful cards higher rarity so that they don't show up as often and limited. That's technically why rarities exist. That's why mythic rares were made because they kept realizing that we can't have even the rares need to have an upper tier,
Mhm.
just like how commons have uncommons, and it's like kind of despise the whole reason those cards had rarities was basically just to make the good ones harder to get. And then they like never put them into they put them into like digital draft, I guess. So I'll give them a little bit of slack there, but like, you know, like why is this not just a secret layer where I can get all these cards for just buying them? Like
Mhm.
they shouldn't be this shouldn't be a gotcha set, which is what it felt like. But we'll probably talk more about that when we get into Assassin's Creed over the summer because that's
Mhm.
that's coming this year. A direct to modern set. It comes off. It's the aftermath set of MH3, which is
Modern
I
Horizons 3 and
despise it.
Modern Horizons 3 Aftermath.
Modern Thorium, it's Beyond Boosters Assassin's Creed. Uh, kill me now. Like, but we can wrap it up for our very first episode of the CardWard Podcast. A little bit all over the place, but that's what
Yeah.
podcasts are. So if you just like hearing us discuss things, that's why you come here to listen. I know that you and I talked about doing this a little bit. Right now, there will be a Discord. It'll be hosted within your Discord.
Yes. So,
For now.
so for before we go into that, thank you for everybody who listened this far into the episode. We appreciate you.
Yes.
If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to comment below any thoughts or feedbacks, or if you just like the episode, we appreciate that. If you are listening on Spotify or Apple Music and you want to give feedback, you could join my Discord, and I'll have a channel for the podcast in there, or you can find us on any social media, really. I'm Jaffer TTV on every social media, and I'm Jaffer on Twitch, or you could find SaltiestGaijin on any social media as well. And you could just add us or add us at CardWard Pod and just let us know what you thought. We'd
Yeah.
greatly appreciate that. This is our very first episode, so of course things are not going to be perfect. So it's going to be a work in progress of how things will turn out from here. Um, and we're going to be doing this on a slow frequency of episodes to start
Well,
out
once a
with
month for now.
for once a month, and then after we get a feel for this, if we like doing it, like we want to do it more, we might,
Or if you like us doing it,
yeah, or that.
if the
uh
viewers like it, we'll do more as well.
mhm. Like I would like to hope eventually maybe do every other week, but that
Yeah.
that does sound like a lot right now for us.
Yeah.
So any feedback is greatly appreciated. We appreciate you for listening. Thank you. John, do you have any thoughts, anything else you want to say?
Yeah, and never hesitate if you have something, if you have a topic that you want to hear about,
Or
right?
judge question?
Like this was an or judge question, which I will only answer on the podcast if I get tweeted a judge question. I will just tell you in response to your tweet, I will tweet back when the next episode comes out. Uh, and we'll be happy. We're always happy to take on new topics. Like even today, like this was, we did a brief talk about our first impressions of Outlaws at Thunder Junction. I'm sure with our next episode, we'll be talking even more about it because we'll be going into RC Dallas. Uh, within that relative time frame.
Hmm.
And we'll also have a better idea of what cards stuck in standard. And we'll probably, even with Pioneer, we'll kind of have a better idea of like, okay, so what's kind of made the power level cut of these formats and is actually showing up. So we'll have more to talk about with our next episode. But any other topics, we're always happy to talk about them. We do avoid politics on the stream. We will talk economics if you have questions, because I am an expert. Uh,
Idea. I have an idea. I think is a great idea for a segment of the podcast for after DRC. On the way down to Milwaukee, when we're driving there for our flight, we record our thoughts and stuff on the drive down there, and on the way back, if we're not dead, feeling dead, then we do the same thing on the way back for our experience.
driving back from Milwaukee at like 11 o'clock at night. We fly in like really late on Monday. But we'll get some of our thoughts together,
Yeah.
and then we'll maybe either release them with the next episode after that, which would be like in June, or maybe we do a little mini thing where we get those out so that it's closer to the RC. But
Hmm.
yeah, we'll be happy to tackle anything. That might even be something we want to add as a segment to the show, is to answer any Twitter questions or
Yeah.
uh, YouTube comment questions or things you yelled at me while I was at a tournament and I was scared and confused. Uh, and we'll address all of it as best as we can, because of course we're always happy to really, that's the whole point of this,
Hmm.
right? Is this all stems from being on your live stream, people having just a million questions and loving the answers they're getting,
Hmm.
and that's the whole point of this. So even if half the show gets to just be that, I'd absolutely love doing that, because it's one of my favorite things to do, is to interact
Hmm.
with all the folks out there and answer their questions and have a good time doing so.
Yeah. This
But
is definitely fun. I had fun recording this episode. So for anybody that is looking for either of us, John, where can everybody find you?
find me at SaltiestGaijin for those watching this on YouTube. Of course, you'll see at the top of the screen all the platforms we're on. But for those listening to this, well, get some eyes and watch the YouTube too. Watch both and listen to both. We appreciate the engagement. But you can find me on Twitch, where I stream once a week. Uh, I'm not as active on YouTube as you are. I will be with this now, kind of, but you can technically find me there, and then as well as on Twitter, where I will tweet out my occasional random magic thoughts. Like recently, I shared that I saw somebody refer to Grixis control as rub mid range, like
Rub.
RUB, like red, blue, black. And all I could think about now was how Cruel Ultimatum was just about what kind of barbecue sauce you have to pick when you can only pick one. The cruelest ultimatum.
I'm gonna be honest. My mind did not go to barbecue.
I love barbecue. I'm excited. It's all right. You don't like barbecue? You don't like
No,
brisket and
no,
stuff
I
like
do
that?
like barbecue. I said I'm gonna be
Okay.
honest. My mind didn't go to barbecue.
Yeah, I know. Neither did anybody who responded to that on Twitter. I didn't want to take the low hanging fruit. Okay. Uh, if it was Grixis combo, then I would have taken the low hanging fruit. If it was rub combo, then yeah, like, because that's like a whole thing. But uh, I went with barbecue because I love barbecue and I'm excited for Texas. What's your favorite cut of barbecue?
Uh,
Are you a brisket man?
if it if it's barbecue, I like it. I like any kind of food really, as long as it's
Okay.
not super duper spicy.
Nice. I really like that middle of the road answer where you don't want to pick one, and like, my favorite is
What's that?
of all the things, a lot of people find this weird. It's turkey. I love barbecue turkey.
Barbecue turkey.
Yeah, so you can get like at a lot of like down in Milwaukee, there's a place right by the Wisconsin Center that does barbecue,
Mhm.
and it's one of the cuts you can get is turkey, and it's like a turkey breast that they've
Ah.
smoked and cooked just like a brisket,
Mhm.
and they slice it, and it's just perfect. And there's a place in Texas that we'll probably be going to while we're there. Heads up, uh, that also sells barbecue turkey, and it's fantastic, and I
Okay.
love it. It's my favorite. And brisket's up there too. Burnt ends too. Shout out to Burnt Ends. My sister used to live in Kansas City, and I love the barbecue down there. Never managed to go there while she lived there, which I feel bad about. I went there right after she moved for a Magic tournament, and I went there once before she moved there. So it's really weird that it just worked out that awkwardly. But I do like me some burnt ends, and I'm a big fan of white barbecue sauce. At me, I'm not afraid of anybody on the internet. Like I like my horseradish. Leave me alone. Like,
All right. So since we got off topic again, can you just remind everybody where they can find you at?
yeah, you can find me at SaltiestGaijin on pretty much any social media platform. You can also, of course, find us at CardWard Pod on well any social media
Hmm.
platform and anywhere that you can get podcasts. Is what other podcasts say, but like that's Spotify and Apple Music.
Hmm.
Let's be real. How about you? Where can we find you?
For everybody that's looking for me, if you're obviously if you're watching here on YouTube, above my head, but on I am streaming full time over on Twitch, twitch.tv/Jaffer, Jaffer. If you're looking for me on YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, I guess I don't really post there. Jaffer TTV, Jaffer TTV. So you should definitely go follow here wherever you're watching the CardWard Pod, and then go follow both of us everywhere else and harass us. Not really. And when we're doing content.
Yes, yes, send me hostile DMs on Twitter, please. Tell me that I'm, I don't know, something for liking white barbecue sauce. Like, tell me how I'm wrong.
Well, thank you everybody for watching or listening or watching today. We really do appreciate it. Again, this is our first episode, so any feedback is greatly appreciated. And hope you have a wonderful day, evening,
We'll,
night, whatever it is.
we'll see you again soon.